Good evening. Welcome to Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast. I am your host, Tabitha L. Tonight, I will provide important insight on damages caused by fire or electrical incidents. I will outline critical electrical standards and equipment for such scenarios. It's unfortunate, but sometimes unexpected events do happen. On fire or flood jobs, in many cases, the inspector will not have the expertise to make the decisions based on our knowledge of the National Electrical Code. Where does our responsibility lie when inspecting a house or structure that has sustained damages from a fire? Our responsibility is on the side of safety for both the persons and property. The characteristics of each fire or flood are unique, requiring a tailored approach for inspections and evaluation of the equipment. Inspectors play a crucial role in determining the salvageability of electrical system post-disaster. NEMA, National Electrical Manufacturer Association, provides essential guidelines for assessing damaged electrical equipment. Additionally, manufacturers may need to decide whether to support products affected by such events. The effects of smoke, heat, fire, water on the electrical equipment and conductors resulting from a fire or a flood can cause severe damage. Direct heat of the fire on the electrical components can lead to significant operational issues and potential safety hazards. The key points for tonight: evaluation, focus, assessing equipment exposed to fire, firefighting residue, heat, water, and smoke. The target audience: suppliers, electricians, project managers, electrical inspectors, building inspectors, owners, and the expert consultants. The manufacturer should be consulted for additional insight on equipment. Qualified assessment. The evaluation must be carried out by a certified professional. We'll get to that a little later. I'll start by asking a question that I receive often: why are electrical inspections crucial for fire or flood restoration projects? Here are some key reasons. When we show up on the job, we have to determine which parts of the electrical system requires replacement and which ones are essential. We have to determine the extent of the water damages that were exposed to necessitate the fire, determine the wiring for to see what actually with the wiring to make sure that the water that was exposed on the wiring wasn't. We just need to check the wiring. Smoke residue containing conductive carbon can lead to tracking and potential fire hazards over time. We're going to check the heat to see with the equipment if anything melt, or with the boxes, the lights. We're going to check and look around for things like that, ensuring the electrical safety. Aluminum wiring. Aluminum wiring involvement often mandates a complete rewire of that structure. The inspection is crucial as we're looking at crucial information to make sure that we make sure we don't miss anything while we're inspecting all of the electrical equipment. The replacement of the electrical service, the overcurrent devices, is typically necessary, along with checking for residue on the electrical components. Here's what the electrical contractor should know or must know. When you have a fire or a flood, the utility company will pull the meter and will not restore the service without inspections from the fire marshal, the building department, and the electrical department. Before re-energizing the service, we have to wait for the damage assessment inspection by the local municipality and building department. That's really a crucial piece of information for the electrical contractors. Power cannot be restored to any flood or fire job without the electrical department receiving a damage assessment inspection from the local municipality. We need that first before we can move forward. I'll explain that later. This inspection is vital in determining the building occupancy. That's why you need that as well. The status post-power restoration and identifying if the structure repairs are necessary. Inspection report must be forwarded to the authority having jurisdiction for further action. With the fire jobs, when the inspector arrives on site, we're going to walk through, we're going to do what I explained earlier, but how do we make our determinations? Because remember, as I stated earlier, each job, each fire or flood is unique and is different. It has different characteristics. It has different elements with the fire burning. So everything is different. So it's a case by case. It's like it's something new when we come on that project. Even if you had another fire job that you think that was similar, it's a case by case basis. So here's the walkthrough process when we're going to determine. We're going to look at things, and as I stated, the knowledge we have, we're going to base it off the National Electrical Code. Also, there is an electrical ordinance 1102.080/8C, damaged equipment must be replaced. So that's something that the contractor needs to look into, because there is an ordinance when these type of things do occur. Also, we go off of policy. There's actually a policy. It says notice to electrical contractors regarding fire damage electrical systems, and it explains in detail the requirements of a general electrical fire or flood. Well, this is for the fire. This is for the fire requirements. So that's 1102 for the damaged equipment. So this policy, it will tell you in detail. So please, if you do have a fire job, call up the inspector in your municipality, and maybe they can send you a policy, and this is additional information that you're going to need on top of the information from the National Electrical Code. Your local municipality may have a policy and ordinance. Here's the critical thing when determining these things. NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturer Association, offers critical guidelines for assessing fire and flood damage equipment. This publication, reflecting the consensus of NEMA members companies, outline a comprehensive approach. And I'm reading this, citing this word for word. I'm citing this from NEMA. It's vital to note that these guidelines complement, not override, the manufacturer's recommendations. So that's something that we weigh heavily on when we're making decisions as well. We weigh heavily on NEMA's requirements. We take that in consideration. I'll get into that a little later as well. So the thing with the National Electrical Code, something that we look for that comes into play with fire jobs in the National Electrical Code would be Article 110.12, unused openings. The purpose, so the plugs in there. So let me go through. So the electrical integrity of the electrical equipment. We're going to look at the wiring, the bus bars. We're going to look at the damage contained by the foreign materials, such as the water that was used to extinguish the fire. We need to look at things like that. No damages should be to no part of the equipment. So basically, Article 110.12, A, B, C, the cable conductors, we're looking at those type of things. So Article 110.12, that's the National Electrical Code. That's something that we're going to look at when we're there looking at the conductors and boxes and everything. So NEMA, as I stated, offers critical guidelines for assessing the fire. So some of their guidelines, I'm just going to run through a few for you, just to give you an example. 4.5, conduit, tubing, fitting, outlet boxes, and junction boxes. Basically, this just tells you what's required during a fire and what they're looking for. These are the type of things that they're looking for that are damaged, must be replaced. Outlet boxes, fittings, non-metallic, metallic, have not been evaluated for the effects of the exposure to the conditions described in this publication. The presence of known or unknown corrosive agents in fire events in particular can affect the physical properties of metallic and non-metallic materials. So basically, with each section, NEMA is giving you an explanation for why you're not allowed to reuse junction boxes, conduits, cables, flexible cords. They go through an array of things where you can't use it, and they're giving you the reasons why in their publication. So as I go on, just wanted to mention the smoke in many cases contain corrosive and chemicals that can be detrimental to the conductors and so on. So remember, when we come on the job, we must look at what's in front of us. So if I come there and I see your job and I see the smoke damage, water damage, fire damage, heat damage, those things have to be replaced. And pictures will be taken. That's the biggest issue with fire or flood jobs. The contractor and the owners, they're trying to save as much as they can. And that's understandable, but to what cost to safety? These are where the guidelines are coming from. Because that's often asked, how do you determine what goes and what stays from the guidelines I just read to you? So now I want to move on to water. It's similar. It's a similar thing. But before I move on, I wanted to give you another example of some of the things that NEMA, some of the things that they are telling you in the publication as well. And one of those things, like I mentioned, was to contact the manufacturer. Some of the things that you can't reuse in a fire, NEMA recommendation. You cannot reuse a molded case circuit breaker, fuses, enclosed switches, panel boards, switch transfer switches. Those are some of the things, just to give you a few examples. You can't use fitting outlet boxes, fire pump controllers, luminaires, that's lighting, arc fault protection, surge protection. So if these things have been submerged in water, NEMA is recommended that it all gets replaced. Now I'll jump into the flooding. It's similar, same requirements. Same requirements with the flood, that the certain equipment has to be replaced, and it's almost identical in what I mentioned with the fire. One of the things I wanted to mention with the fire jobs, and this is just prevention, when I go on my inspections and I do my inspections, and when you have demising walls and tenants that share the wall space, I've mentioned this before, that's very important. That's why putty pads, or that's why they are required with that 2-foot stud cavity if you have two tenants that are opposite. It's to prevent the spread of fire. I often get that question, and I just want to keep reiterating, it is an electrical code requirement. It's building requirement and code. Article 300, just to get you that information. They are required. Mentioning the flood-related jobs. I mention this because there are times when you're on new construction projects, and there may be occasions where they're really pushing the job forward, and there may be some leaks in the building. On occasions, the electrical switchgear room may get flooded with water. You may have the water on the breakers and the switchgear. I've had a few jobs like that. If it rains or if you have leaks in the building, and if I come on the project, even if I'm there for a different type of inspection, and I walk by your switchgear room or your electrical panels, and I see water in your panels, I'm going to stop and inspect that because of this requirement. Because water cannot be in contact with overcurrent devices. And that's on new construction as well. So that's water, period, because you have different types of water. You have the water from the firefighting agents. We don't know what type of chemicals they use in that. You have fresh water. You have sprinkler fitters' water coming out of the sprinkler pipe. So I just want you to take this in consideration, because there are jobs that I go on where that does happen. So remember, if the building is not leak-free, please cover your switch gear with plastic or try to protect it. I see it. There is a possibility that your switch gear would have to get replaced, or the breakers, just depending on how long the water sat there, and it just depends. So please keep that in mind. Well, I had this question from a homeowner. The homeowner, I went there to do an inspection, and because the electrician was recently in their home, they stated that the breaker continuously tripped. Not what the electrician had worked on, but another breaker in their home continuously tripped. And I just wanted to, because they wanted to know information about that, and I thought that was interesting because they kept trying to reset the breaker. So when if a breaker trips, that's an indication that something's wrong. That is preventing a fire. So the breaker is like it's a safety device. So if it trips and it keeps tripping, it's a reason. So you need to, like I mentioned to that homeowner, the electrician was to call the electrician and let them know that. But it's a reason, so don't keep resetting it, because after it trips twice, that's your indication that something's wrong, and not to keep resetting it. All right? And also with the homeowners, I just wanted to give you some essential tips to keep your home safe from electrical hazards and fire hazards. Because while I'm doing the inspections, sometimes I come across like things that are risk factors that can be easily overlooked. And I'm there for inspection. I try to stay focused unless it's something that is a direct hazard or could cause harm or death. Then I'll speak up if it's something to that, if it's really detrimental. So here's something I see sometimes when I'm in homes. I see scorch marks on receptacles. That's an indication that something is wrong. If the receptacle is hot to the touch, that's a potential fire hazard. Also, I see broken switches and broken receptacles. They're broken, so if they are broken, they're not going to operate properly. So you just need to replace that, because that's a fire hazard, and also that's an electrical shock hazard. Also, I see extension cords, and they're loaded with all types of, just depending on the room, just loaded with all types of multi-outlets plugged into one receptacle, and they may have like 3 or 4 plugs in to one multi-outlet. That's an overload. Some of those things you just don't take into consideration, because at that time you want the power. But the reason why I'm looking at it, because I'm the electrical inspector, and when I come in your kitchen and I see extension cord with blenders and toasters and toaster ovens and coffee pots plugged in permanently, that's a fire hazard. And I just want to give you that safety tip, because I'm there for one inspection, but I'm not there to tell you how to live in your home, but that's just something that I do observe a lot of. Another thing that I observe a lot of in homes, extension cords that are damaged. If the extension cord is damaged, where you have to tape it with electrical tape or any type of tape, duct tape, scotch tape, I've seen that. If it's damaged, that's your indication that it's done. You need to get rid of that extension cord, because that's a safety hazard. A safety hazard. When it's damaged in a couple locations or one spot, one is enough. I've seen that. Please get rid of the cord. So if your home is 25 years or older, just be careful with the breakers overloading. I know some things we just take for granted, like the TVs, the computers, the gaming systems, microwaves. We just overload it with power. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you regarding the fire jobs. Tune in next week, and I will give you a list of requirements for generators. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me on any of my social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, under the moniker Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector. If you would like to add to any discussion or provide any feedback, you can email me at asktheladyelectricalinspector@gmail.com with any questions or concerns. Thank you for tuning in, and good night.